Director of National Intelligence. Oh, where's Tulsi? She's like hotter than everybody. She's the hottest one in the room right now because she found out with certainty. I think we knew it before, in all fairness, Tulsi, but now you have certainty. She has all the documents. She has everything that you need. And she found out that Barack Hussein Obama led a group of people and they cheated in the elections, and they cheated without question. It's not even a question. Would you say there's even a little question there, Tulsi? She says no. And you found things that nobody thought we'd ever find. And very happy and very honored to have you with us. She's right now, by far, Speaker, she's hotter than you right now, Speaker. She's the hottest person in the room right now, Speaker. So, Tulsi, great job. And I know you have a lot more coming. She told me you've seen nothing yet.
The report goes into great detail about the information that Russia and Putin had on Hillary Clinton, which included possible criminal acts like secret meetings with multiple named U.S. religious organizations in which State Department officials offered, in exchange for supporting Secretary Clinton's campaign for the presidency, significant increases in financing from the State Department. They also had documents that showed the patronage of the State Department to State Department employees who would go and support Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. There were high-level DNC emails that detailed evidence of Hillary's, quote, psycho-emotional problems, uncontrolled fits of anger, aggression, and cheerfulness.
What I don't appreciate is that these are cherry-picked examples, that they are quibbling, angels dancing on the head of a pin. When we have volumes of reporting, you're always going to find one report that's different. Okay, yeah. Whatever. The big message here for Americans, Russia tried to interfere in our election processes with the point of undermining our confidence in our democracy. And by bringing this up again, the Trump administration is doing the work of our adversary, Russia.
All right, Beth Sanders.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So we got to talk about the mainstream liberal media and the Democrats, including Barack Hussein Obama and Hillary Clinton being in full-blown panic mode as Tulsi Gabbard, who, as you guys can see at the beginning of this video, is now, I guess, the superstar of the Trump administration, drops bombshell after bombshell after bombshell, basically revealing to the world that water is wet, right? AKA that the Russian collusion hoax was, in fact, a hoax.
The witch hunt that you should be talking about is they caught President Obama absolutely cold, Tulsi Gabbard. What they did to this country in 2016, starting in 2016, but going up all the way going up to 2020 in the election. They tried to rig the election, and they got caught. And there should be very severe consequences for that. You know, when we caught Hillary Clinton, I said, you know what? Let's not go too far here. It's the ex-wife of a president, and I thought it was sort of terrible. And I let her off the hook, and I'm very happy I did. But it's time to start, after what they did to me, and whether it's right or wrong, it's time to go after people. Obama's been caught directly.
Okay, a hoax that Obama pushed even when he was out of office before the 2018 midterms. He still continued to push a hoax that Tulsi proved through declassified intel documents that Obama knew was not true, which is that Russia interfered on behalf of President Trump in the 2016 election, and that this actually had an effect on the outcome of the election, which is the Russian collusion hoax that Democrats peddle, that we now know is completely and totally false.
They're undermining our alliances, cozying up to Russia. What happened to the Republican Party? Its central organizing principle in foreign policy was the fight against communism, and now they're cozying up to the former head of the KGB. Actively blocking legislation that would defend our elections from Russian attack. What happened? Seem utterly unwilling to find the backbone to safeguard the institutions that make our democracy work. I'm here to tell you that you should still be concerned with our current course and should still want to see a restoration of honesty and decency and lawfulness in our government. It should not be Democratic or Republican. It should not be a partisan issue to say that we do not pressure the Attorney General or the FBI to use the criminal justice system as a cudgel to punish our political opponents. And the closer that we get to Election Day, the more those invested in the politics of fear and division will do anything to hang on to their recent gains. Who want to keep us divided and keep us angry and keep us cynical because that helps them maintain the status quo and keep their power and keep their privilege. In the end, the threat to our democracy doesn't just come from Donald Trump or the current batch of Republicans in Congress or the Koch brothers and their lobbyists or too much compromise from Democrats or Russian hacking. The biggest threat to our democracy is indifference.
Voters in America should decide who our president is, not Vladimir Putin.
The Russians offered help, the campaign accepted help. The Russians gave help, and the president made full use of that help. And that is pretty damning.
I believe he knows he's an illegitimate president.
The bottom line of this dossier, the bottom line allegation, the point of this is they colluded, they helped, they were in on it.
What does Vladimir Putin have on President Trump?
And they've also decided who they want to see become president of the United States, too, and it's not me.
Secondly, I found out that Vladimir Putin doesn't want me to be president.
We need to make it very clear, whether it's Russia, China, Iran, or anybody else.
This election, that Russia has been involved.
Yeah, so Russian hacking, right? Russian hacking, something that his own intel community knew was not a real thing, right? Russia didn't really have all the capabilities that they claimed that they had, right, in order to smear President Trump, which is essentially the revelations that Tulsi Gabbard has now come out with, revelations that CNN did not want their audience to hear, okay, because they decided to cut the stream of Tulsi exposing the fact that networks like CNN and MSNBC lied, okay, repeatedly lied, and peddled this Russian collusion hoax that was manufactured by the Clinton campaign and the Obama administration.
Multiple intelligence community assessments released in the months leading up to the November 2016 election concluded that Russia had neither the intent nor capability to impact the outcome of the U.S. election. On December 5th.
We've been listening there to the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, continuing on what has now been a multi-day effort, not only with public statements like this, but release of documents to attempt to back up the quite extreme allegation that President Obama is guilty of treason and that he worked in some sort of conspiracy with Hillary Clinton, etc., in the assessment by the intelligence community at the time that Russia interfered in the 2016 election, and part of that assessment at the time was that the Kremlin had a preference in that election for Donald Trump. There's a lot of conflation going on here and going beyond what the intelligence showed. I should note, having covered that election quite closely, that the assessment never said that Russia changed the outcome of the election, access to voting systems, votes, etc. I mean, we should note that there were multiple findings of that intelligence assessment. One was, and this one has not really never been disputed by Republicans or Democrats, was that Russia interfered in the election via disinformation. Then you had other elements, one of which was that the preference of the Kremlin was for Donald Trump, and that was based in part on sources in Russia, but it was also based on the nature of the interference, stealing Hillary Clinton emails, John Podesta emails from the DNC, and then releasing those during the campaign, particularly at times where it might have impact, one of which was after the release of the Access Hollywood tape, right? That lots of focus at the time was on that tape, damaging to Donald Trump, and then you had this release of emails. There were a number of things that went into that assessment, but we should note that intelligence assessments often have layers one and different degrees of confidence with each of the findings.
Yeah, so you see that, you heard that. Don't you guys just love how CNN likes to play the semantics game, right? And I told you guys this will be their response to the accusations from Tulsi Gabbard. They say, well, we never said that Russia actually really hacked the election and changed the outcome of the election, even though Democrats went on all of these platforms, right, public platforms, and claimed that President Trump was illegitimate because Russia hacked the election. Like, has CNN ever disputed Democrats and said, no, that's actually not true? Have they ever fact-checked a Democrat claiming that Trump is an illegitimately elected president and that Russia hacked the election? What does that imply, right, when they say stuff like that? That implies that Russia actually had an effect on the outcome of the election, which is the narrative that they helped push after the 2016 election. That's exactly what they were saying, okay? That's exactly what they were putting out there to the public. So now they want to say, oh, well, technically, we didn't really say that, but Democrats said that. That's exactly what they said, okay? They're playing these games, right? But I told you what they say is that, well, we just said that Russia bought some Facebook ads. That's it. They hacked some emails, right? Which means they undisputably tried to interfere in the election. Well, I'm pretty sure that we have intelligence on almost every country trying to interfere in our elections, right? I wouldn't be surprised if some of our so-called allies, right? A specific country in the Middle East, right, doesn't try to interfere in our elections. I'm just saying, I'm sure Russia is not the only country trying to interfere in our elections, right? The focus on Russia specifically was to paint the narrative that President Trump is in bed with Russia and that he's such a Manchurian candidate of Putin, right? That is what the narrative was, okay? So, again, these people make me sick because if you actually listen to what Tulsi said, what she's outlining is that we have direct evidence to suggest that the Obama intel community knew that Russia, for as much as they were, quote unquote, interfering in our elections, right, with Facebook ads, they weren't really doing it on behalf of any one preferred candidate. They were just doing it because they wanted to just screw with our elections anyways, which, again, like I just said, I'm pretty sure a lot of countries try to do that, okay, not just Russia. But regardless, some of the evidence to back up what Tulsi's saying, again, before we play this extended clip of what she actually said without the CNN propaganda check, would, again, challenge the idea that they really, really, really wanted Hillary to lose, because apparently they had damaging information on Hillary that was not released. Like, for example, there were internal claims that Hillary was on heavy tranquilizers and suffering intensified psycho-emotional problems. Evidence of severe health ailments like type 2 diabetes and heart disease. Internal DNC communications that Obama and others found Hillary's health extraordinarily alarming. Evidence of secret meetings with religious leaders where Clinton offered, quote-unquote, significant increases in funding from the State Department in return for their support, aka a bribe, right? Internal Democrat admissions that European allies were unenthusiastic about a Hillary presidency and thought she was not up to the job of head of state. So apparently, Russia really wanted Hillary to lose, right? Really wanted Trump to win, but for whatever reason, they didn't leak this information before the election that could have hurt Hillary for whatever reason.
I'm going to go over the key findings from the House Intelligence Report, which investigated the claims that were made by an intelligence community assessment ordered by President Obama and published in January of 2017. First, Putin's principal interests relating to the 2016 election were to undermine faith in the U.S. democratic process, not show any preference of a certain candidate. In fact, this report shows Putin held back from leaking compromising material on Hillary Clinton prior to the election, instead planning to release it after the election to weaken what Moscow viewed as an inevitable Clinton presidency. In the January 2017 intelligence community assessment that President Obama ordered, John Brennan, who was CIA director at the time, and the intelligence community intentionally suppressed intelligence that showed Putin was saving the most damaging material that he had in his possession about Hillary Clinton until after her potential and likely victory. The report goes into great detail about the information that Russia and Putin had on Hillary Clinton, which included possible criminal acts like secret meetings with multiple named U.S. religious organizations in which State Department officials offered, in exchange for supporting Secretary Clinton's campaign for the presidency, significant increases in financing from the State Department. They also had documents that showed the patronage of the State Department to State Department employees who would go and support Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. There were high-level DNC emails that detailed evidence of Hillary's, quote, psycho-emotional problems, uncontrolled fits of anger, aggression, and cheerfulness, and that then Secretary Clinton was allegedly on a daily regimen of heavy tranquilizers. Then CIA Director Brennan and the intelligence community mischaracterized intelligence and relied on dubious substandard sources to create a contrived false narrative that Putin developed a quote-unquote clear preference for Trump. Brennan and the IC misled lawmakers by referencing the debunked Steele dossier to assess quote-unquote Russia's plans and intentions, falsely suggesting that this dossier had intelligence value when he knew that it was discredited. The intelligence community excluded significant intelligence and ignored or selectively quoted reliable intelligence that contradicted the intelligence community assessment's key findings on Putin's alleged support for Trump. Including this intelligence reporting would have exposed the ICA's claim as implausible, if not ridiculous. The intelligence community assessment omitted reliably sourced information, such as how some Russian intelligence officials were quote-unquote planning for candidate Hillary Clinton's victory, while others assessed neither Trump nor Clinton would respect Russia's interests. As was reflected in the ODNI documents that we released on Friday, multiple intelligence community assessments released in the months leading up to the November 2016 election concluded that Russia had neither the intent nor capability to impact the outcome of the U.S. election. On December 5th of 2016, the FBI and ODNI gave the House Intelligence Committee its first post-election classified briefing, in which there was no mention of Putin aspiring to elect Trump by either agency. The Presidential Daily Brief, drafted on December 8th of 2016, stated that no Russian or criminal actors impacted vote counts. This document was pulled just hours before it was to be published due to quote-unquote new guidance. If it had been published, it would have been briefed to both President Obama and President-elect Donald Trump. On December 9th, 2016, a National Security Council meeting was called to gather President Obama's senior national security officials, which included CIA Director Brennan, then Obama DNI James Clapper, Susan Rice, and others. Following that secret meeting, DNI Clapper's assistant sent an email to the intelligence community with the subject line, POTUS tasking on Russia election meddling, tasking ODNI leaders to create a new assessment per the president's request. The House Intelligence Committee Oversight Report that we released today reveals that, quote, unlike routine intelligence community analysis, the intelligence community assessment was a high-profile product ordered by the president, President Obama. It directed senior intelligence community agency heads and created an intelligence community assessment limited to just 5 analysts, using one principal drafter. This is not something that occurs in the normal path of producing an intelligence community assessment that reflects the views across the intelligence community.
Yeah, so you see that, you heard that. Now, Tulsi went on to confirm that she did, in fact, refer Obama and his lackeys, his intelligence lackeys, to the DOJ for possible criminal prosecution. Now, I wouldn't hold my breath, right, and say that any of these individuals are actually going to be arrested and prosecuted for what she calls treasonous conspiracy. But there are some Obama officials, like, for example, James Clapper, who is concerned, right? He is concerned that he could possibly be arrested. In fact, he ran to CNN in full-blown panic mode over Tulsi's bombshell press conference. Take a look.
Do you believe that any of this new information implicates former President Obama in criminal behavior?
We have referred and will continue to refer all of these documents to the Department of Justice and the FBI to investigate the criminal implications of this.
For even former President Obama?
Correct. The evidence that we have found and that we have released directly point to President Obama leading the manufacturing of this intelligence assessment. There are multiple pieces of evidence and intelligence that confirm that fact.
Ed, go ahead.
Director Gabbard, thank you. So just two questions, but to begin on that. The president yesterday, you've inferred that the former president helped lead a coup. based on what you now see, do you believe President Obama is guilty of treason?
I'm leaving the criminal charges to the Department of Justice. I am not an attorney, but as I've said previously, when you look at the intent behind creating a fake manufactured intelligence document that directly contradicts multiple assessments that were created by the intelligence community, the expressed intent and what followed afterward can only be described as a years-long coup and a treasonous conspiracy against the American people, our republic, and an attempt to undermine President Trump's administration.
The Senate Intelligence.
When the director says that she's referred these filings to the Justice Department for a criminal investigation, tonight we're told they formed what is called a strike force. Do you have concerns that they will attempt to prosecute you?
Well, certainly I do. After 8.5 years of this, and I don't know of an intelligence product that was more scrutinized, more investigated than that product was by numerous people. It's very disconcerting. It really is. And I take seriously when the President of the United States accuses me of being a participant in a treasonous conspiracy, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, what's your reaction to that?
It's ridiculous. It is untrue.
So what will you do if they come after you? What is your plan?
Well, I'll lawyer up, I suppose. Already have.
You've already hired attorneys in case of, in anticipation that this Trump Justice Department could try to prosecute you.
We've had sort of perpetual attorneys since I left the government in 2017.
Yeah, see that you heard that. Full-blown panic mode, as he should be. Now, what I find to be rather fascinating about all this, right, is that you have some people saying, oh, this is a distraction from Epstein. And I'm like, well, I don't know, but if it is, it's certainly working. Because the media is covering this, they're having to talk about it, they're having to defend themselves because they told lies, right? And the news cycle just kind of moves on, right? And you're seeing that the news cycle is moving on to other things, right? As, again, the media has tried their best to try to take down Trump, but Trump is essentially turned it back on them, right, with this whole Obama-Russia thing, which, again, I'm not sure if Obama's actually going to be arrested and charged. Liberals will come out here and say, well, the president has immunity. All of a sudden, they will now be supporting unlimited immunity for a president, right? That's what they'll do, right? After, boo-hooing and crying about that when it comes to President Trump. Now, again, they're basically going to argue that Obama has immunity now, because of the possibility that he could be charged and arrested. It's just funny how that works. Regardless, we're going to see what comes of this. I would like for Tulsi to release more information. I would like for the Department of Justice to do an investigation for sure. And I want people to be held accountable, right? If, Obama and his lackeys actually did participate in a treasonous conspiracy, then they should be held accountable. At the very least, they wasted taxpayer dollars coming up with a hoax along with Hillary Clinton in order to smear the president, to undermine the president and his agenda, the confidence that the American people have in the president, that he was legitimately elected, and that at the very least is a misuse of taxpayer funds, is a waste of time. And again, it does kind of undermine the American people and the sitting president of the United States using, manufactured intelligence. And I don't think that that's something that should be unpunished, right? I think that there should be consequences for that. And if you got to make some arrests, if you got to, start bringing some charges, it is what it is. Now they'll boo-hoo on and cry about it and, say, oh, this is a political witch hunt. But hey, that's what we have the court of law for, right? That's what we have the courts for. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.